This video is going to cover how to use the terminal on a Mac. And I'll try to keep it pretty short and useful. So to run your terminal application, if you haven't done this before, you probably don't have it in your dock. Like my dock has a lot of stuff, and I happen to have the terminal app already docked there. But for all of the rest of you, you can either go to your applications or you can just use Spotlight and search for terminal. If you start typing it, it'll come up immediately and hit enter. And so this is the terminal. Yours might have a white background with black text, or I think I've changed mine. Let's see if I can make it a little larger here for you. Great. Okay, so the top line just says when it was last logged in. You can ignore that unless you expect like that the last login might not have been you. Then maybe you've got something bigger problems, and because somebody could have hacked your computer or something. But either way, ignore that first line. The second line we talked about in the earlier video, and so this is just the name of the computer. The item after the colon is the current working directory, and it has a tilde here, so you're like, what's that? I'll show you in a second. And then after that, you have the username, which in my case is Christian. So the first command I want to show you is the print working directory command, which is pwd. So if I type that and I hit enter, it will print my working directory, which in my case is /users/boz. Long story, Boz set this computer up, and then I'm using it now, couldn't change the name. Anyway, so that's just my current working directory. It happens to be my home directory, and that's indicated by the tilde there. So in this video, I think maybe the easiest thing to show you is something that kind of represents also a graphical component to what you're used to. So what I'd like to do here is, let's just say we have the following use case. We want to create a new folder. In fact, we're probably going to end up creating lots of folders. But let's say we want to create a new folder for the course. We want to call it App Lab, and then we think for every lab that we have, we're going to want to have a folder for that. And so since we just did the first lab, let's go ahead and say, well, great. I know I'm going to have some code that I want to have inside of that folder too. So I need what? I want to have a folder on my desktop that says App Lab, a folder under that says Lab 1, and a file within that Lab 1 folder that says lab1.js. Right? And then inside of that, there'll be some JavaScript, and I'm all good. And instead of doing that the old-fashioned way, or maybe we're doing it the old-fashioned way, instead of doing it like the graphical way, we're going to use the console to do that. And in the process, we'll learn a few commands that help us move around fairly quickly, and I'll show you a couple of tips and tricks too. So the first thing we need to do, so let's say we know pwd, we're there. Let's say I'm also curious in terms of what is in that folder. I can use the ls command, which will list out all the files and folders that are there within that directory here. I know they're files generally because they have a dot after them, but that's not always the case. In this particular case, though, it is. So anything that has a dot is a file. Anything that does not is a folder. But I immediately see, after doing the ls command, that I have a folder called desktop. So let's go to that folder. So to do that, we need to use the change directory command, which is cd. So cd, and then do a space, and then the name of the directory. And instead of just typing it out, like desktop, I can actually start typing it, and then hit the tab key, and it will autocomplete based on what it sees. So in this case, DE, nothing else matches that. I hit tab, and it fills in desktop for me. Pretty cool. And that's actually one of the reasons why when we're saying things, the terminal is so fast, and then you're like, well, Christian, I don't believe you because I'm here just doing this and misspelling it. Like, it's okay. If you hit the tab key, that's what actually makes it very fast. And in fact, if you just hit D and you hit tab, well, nothing's happening. But if we hit tab twice, it will actually list out anything that starts with a capital D. So that's actually also very nice. So then we don't need to do this ls command. And in fact, if I just hit tab twice in my home directory, and it's now saying, do you want to display all these possibilities? So the terminal is not stupid. It's actually kind of smart. And it's asking us beforehand, are you sure you want to display 1,433 possibilities that you have just created by double hitting the tab key? And I say, no, I do not. So another useful command for you is the clear command. So I've already kind of gotten to this point where I'm starting to scroll the screen, and you can keep that. And actually the terminal will keep your commands, but for me, I'm just like, this is how I am. I like to have it nice. So I just typed the word clear, and that cleared all of the kind of gobbledygook. That's not a technical term, by the way, but it cleared all the crap, also not a technical term, that was on my screen. And another thing I want to show you before we start actually getting into the thing I said we wanted to do was, because these are all things that make you much faster, are the arrow keys. So if you hit the up arrow on your keyboard, it will cycle through all the commands that you previously used. So I'm hitting the up arrow, and this actually is, I had done some of the say command, which will make your computer talk. So these are all the commands that I had previously entered into my terminal. So by using the up and down arrows, you can cycle through previous commands. So if you end up, using commands a lot, or a command didn't particularly work, you can always hit the up arrow instead of retyping everything. So let's clear that and get back on track. So let's see. I did an ls. I saw my desktop. I can now use the change directory command, which is cd, and I can type desktop. And now what we see is in my prompt have the same computer name, good, but I have a new current working directory of desktop, and then I have the same username. And now I can type ls again, and I can see that it looks like, these are the files that I have on my desktop. It looks good to me. So now what I'd like to do is create a directory. So to do that, the command for that is mkdir, as in make directory, space, and then whatever the name of the directory is. In my case, I would like to name it applab, one word. So I type that, applab, enter. Now look on the right-hand side, we see that we have a new directory already on our computer that says applab. So that's nice. I know it wasn't as fast as what you could have probably done if you were using the Finder or something, but trust me when I say it actually is faster, especially when you get used to it. So what we'd like to do within the applab folder is make another folder for lab 1. To do that, we already know we can do cd, and I'll just hit A and tab. And so now that will autocomplete applab for me and hit enter. And now we notice that our current working directory is applab, but we're confused. Where the hell is that? So we can type pwd, and it shows us exactly where we are from our home directory all the way till the current working directory. We're in applab. If I type ls, it's empty. I'm going to type clear to clear the screen. Now I would like to make one more folder for lab 1, mkdir lab 1. Good. I'll cd to that, just a cd tab L. Okay, great. I'm in lab 1. Maybe I'll type clear again. And the last thing we need to do is we'd like to create our JavaScript file. So to do that, that's the touch command. So if we type the word touch, we can then say lab1.js. In our case, we'd like to say it's a JavaScript file, so it's lab1.js. Enter. And then if we do ls, we see we now have a lab1.js folder. And if we don't believe ourselves, we can actually go to our user interface, look in applab, double click. We see we have lab1, and we click, and we also have lab1.js. It's 0 bytes. So that's very cool. So now you see how this is faster, right? Because I knew how to do all this, probably could have, I could have done all of this within about maybe 3 seconds, maybe 4, right? But way faster than anybody could, create a file and then double click and then create it. So that's nice. It definitely makes it much faster for you to navigate around your PC. And as we'll see later in the class, it actually makes it much faster for you to do almost anything with computers, if you're familiar with the terminal. So the last thing I want to show you here, because we're not going to cover like text editing this file. Maybe that's all you wanted to do, and you've created your file, and now you want to go into, in my case, I think I've associated JavaScript files with Macs, because I was just doing a music project. But you might want to, edit this in Notepad, or you might want to edit it in VS Code, and you may not want to edit it in Vim, which is what I showed earlier. So the last thing I want to show you, just kind of like a fun thing. There's lots of stuff within the terminal that's pretty fun. I mean, the most fun for me is the say command. I'm not going to do it here, but the say command in the Mac terminal will essentially make your computer speak whatever you've typed in. And it has lots of different languages too, so it's very cool. The last thing I'll show, just kind of for fun, is let's say we did touch, but we did .lab1.js. So the dot before the name specifies that this should be a hidden file. So if we hit enter and we look in here and then lab1, you don't see the file. But if we're in our terminal, if we're in our terminal and we do ls, we do not see the file. Trust me, it's there. ls-a, and we see we have a dot, and a .lab1.js and a lab1.js. So -a is showing everything, basically, including hidden files. And your computer has a lot of hidden files in there. So if we do cd and tilde, that brings us back to our home directory. That's another good command. And if you recall, when I double tapped tab, it said display all 1,433 possibilities. I say no, but I did an ls, and it didn't look like 1,433 possibilities. And generally that's because there's many hidden files. So I just did an ls-a, and you see lots of these files that have dots. So that's like it's a helpful thing later on. I don't know how you're going to use it. I guess if you want to create a file that's hidden from average people on their computers, you could do that, and that might be useful. But in general, it's not something that I expect you to use too often until you become a little more advanced. Great.